everyone. I'm your host, Pam Spaccarotella, and welcome back to another episode of Driver Stories. We have two very special guests with us, Harold McKinney and Scot Barney. 10 years ago, Harold recruited Scot to join LGT, and today we're fortunate enough to have them both here to discuss the early days of LGT and to reminisce on some of our favorite memories. With that, let's get started.
Harold, we're going to talk about you first for a few moments, if you don't mind.
That'll be fine.
And then we're going to transition into Scot. And so, do you remember when we first started talking about LGT, and you were working for Genox, and I was working for the city? And I think my first words, and I remember I was standing in my office. I had this beautiful office with these gorgeous windows looking out at the city of Omaha, and I said to you, do you really think we can get drivers? Do you remember that?
I remember that. And I didn't think that was going to be a big problem at all. That was the least of our problems.
Oh, because, I thought that was the biggest hurdle.
There was just a bunch of people out there with a bunch of knowledge and know-how that was wanting to go to the right company. They were just not at the right company.
Yeah, and I always tell people that, and I will continue to tell them probably until the day I die, the only reason that LGT started and got successful was for you, Harold, because of your recruiting. I think hands down you brought at least the first 20, maybe 30 drivers over. You were just out there talking to people, talking about LGT.
It was a bunch of them, but just people I knew over the years and all, and they were all really good guys, and they all really wanted to, something they could latch on to and not just have a paycheck. They wanted something different, and I think we offered that,
Yeah, and I think the first person, you were truck 101, right? And I thought it. And then there was Sean, but then truck 103 was Ron Cryer.
Right.
And you must talk to Ron Cryer. Do you remember when you talked to Ron Cryer?
Yeah, we were both at Genox, and I had was on some job somewhere and all, and we were talking, and I told him about what we were up to and what we were going to do, and we needed to start lining up some names, and he immediately said, yeah, I want to be part of that, He said, that sounds real good. And so he was checked off on the list. And then Sean McCulloch, I called him. I think he was down in Florida at the time. I know he lives there, but I think he was in Florida. And I talked to him over the phone, and he was like, oh, yeah. You know how he is. He's like, yeah, put me on the list, And I said, we'll be calling you. So that's where it started right there. I was calling Steve, but Steve was involved in, I don't think that's a bad thing. He was involved in something. He had to let that go before he could make a move, but he did eventually make that move,
He got sick. Do you remember? Remember he got sick on the way? He was coming over and he got sick.
Yeah.
I think he was in Louisiana. Yeah.
I don't remember where he was, but
yeah. So that was the beginning, and I'm just going to rattle off these names, right? Because we had you in 101, we had Sean Kleinert in 102, Ron Cryer was 103, Larry Aubert. I think you worked in the oil fields with Larry up there in Williston, up in that area. Yep. And then we had Sean McCulloch in 105. We had Steve Myers in 106. And then we got a couple from James Ishman. You remember that? Joe Coburn and Doug Estes?
Yeah.
Yep.
And we still have them all. All of them.
We do. And somewhere in the road, right, we ended up with a guy in truck 118. And so guess who that was? 118. Do you guys remember?
And that rings a bell, but I just can't place it.
I don't.
Scot Barney, maybe?
Yeah, maybe Scot Barney.
That was that blue truck. Well, that thing was cold-hearted.
Yeah.
So, do you remember Scott when Harold called you? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I ran into him at Claremore, where we're loading CO2 at I think at Claremore, Oklahoma is when I think that was when the seed really got planted for me thinking of coming over there. And I'm not sure if that was when I was on my way up.
You know, I think it was. I think it was there. I think we were talking there, and next thing you know, you were working here. Take long.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
I mean, it's been a while, so it's kind of jarring some of these memories.
Yeah, it's pretty vague for me. I'm hoping it was you that I remember. My memory's not that great.
Yeah. So, Scott, do you remember do you remember what he said?
No, just talking about the job and, saying he, he didn't really try to sell anything to me from what I recall, because I'm always wary of that. I'm cynical, so if anybody seems like they're selling something too hard, I kind of tune out. So he said he was happy, and I mean, I was pretty happy, Genox. I didn't have, I never had any of the kerfuffles that some people had over there. I know that people thought that there were money problems and stuff, but they, as far as I could tell, who knows what happens that you don't know about. They did right by me, but the yard was, the yard in Rose City down there in Texas was really close to my house. So, it just seemed like it made more sense. It was going to make it easier for me to get home.
And you brought that beautiful truck you had.
Yeah, that blue Freightliner. Oh man, that thing hurt my feelings really bad.
That was something.
Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember that truck.
It's a pretty truck. I love the truck, but
maybe, Harold, we should back up a little bit and talk about your truck 101. Maybe we should talk
101. Well, we had talked about getting some vehicles and all, and you had purchased I think 3, maybe 4 of them. I don't know. These Kenworth what were they? T800s or something like that, and T600s, whatever they were, and they had the Cummins, and they had 500,000 miles on them. Everything mechanically was really good except the DPF filter kind of thing. We were having problems with those, but they were actually, I thought they were pretty good trucks. They're really beautiful trucks. We got them from the Freightliner dealership, and they were from that company called Below Zero or something like that. They had that color. They still have that color, and they ship frozen stuff, and so we thought, it's mostly highway miles, 99% highway miles for the type of business it came from. And I know some of the guys had some really bad problems with them, but I never had a whole lot of problems with mine at all. It really ran good. And they were like, I think 450, 500 horsepower Cummins, 13 speeds. They were just really beautiful trucks.
I drove one of those for a while.
Yeah.
My truck broke down in New York State. I had it in Detroit, like seeing how much it was going to cost me to get a rebuild, and I was lucky enough that there was one empty down there, so I just flew home and picked that up, and then decided to lease a truck after that. So I just had to wait for a lease truck.
I know when Pam and I had drove over to the Freightliner place to pick it up. I was sight unseen, but we went to pick it up, and I'd seen pictures of it, and I was very impressed with them. Our first company-owned leased out trucks were just really nice trucks, and we put our logos on the side of them and we took off.
I have to tell another story though here. I have to tell you another story that I told to my daughter just the other day. Do you remember when we couldn't get any work and one of the first loads we hauled was Omaha steaks? Do you remember those?
Yes, ma'am. Well, me and Sean were talking about that just the other day about hauling Omaha steaks and all, and it was fun. We was all over the crazy places, L.A. and Miami and here, there, and yonder. So we were going all over the place with Omaha steaks, and it was that time of the year.
Yeah.
For Christmas.
And do you remember?
Christmas time.
Do you remember the gate guard there at Omaha Steaks?
I do. I remember. I don't remember exactly what she was making me mad about, but she wouldn't let us pick up a trailer or something. I don't know what her deal. I can't remember, but I know we had some kind of little controversy going on there. It was all.
Yeah. So I gotta tell you. So we had this. Brittany was telling me she had this brand new customer, and it was a new customer for propane. And she sends her very first guy in there, and lo and behold, he gets to the gate and he gets into it with the gate guy, and he gets sent away, right? And she says, "Can you believe it? Can you believe it?" And I said, "Yes, I can believe it, because we we were begging.
Yeah, we were
begging for. Yeah, we did that. We did that.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is with gate guards, man, that are crazy. They're not crazy, but it just seems to be, they always want something that you don't have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's. I think it's some kind of power thing or whatever they have over truck drivers. A lot of them respect truck drivers, and there's a very few that don't. And it's just every once in a while you're going to have that problem. Always at the wrong time, though.
They're too much like
Always
truck drivers. They've got all that time to sit in the guard shack and think about stuff. That's why they spend a lot of time alone. So I think gate guards are also, they're kind of they're misanthropes, kind of like truck drivers are.
But we learned our lessons on that. I just let them rattle off now, and I don't tell them nothing.
Yeah. Those, I wasn't planning on buying trucks at the beginning. I thought all of the drivers would come over with their own trucks. And so that's why we ended up with those used trucks. It wasn't in my plan. And I don't know at what point I realized, Harold, that you didn't have a truck, but at some point I was like, oh shit, I got to do something.
Well, I did have a truck. And I sold it, and I was just leasing a truck after that because I didn't want to own one anymore. I just figured leasing was better, and I think it is. I think to this day, if I was a truck driver, that's what I would do: is lease it. I would not own it.
Huh.
Well, I know in Texas you can only write off the value for so long before you're going to start paying all the
And with the lease, you pay you write off everything, and then you get a new truck in a couple of years.
Yeah, never had a warranty. I find it to be better.
Yeah.
It took you a long time, though, Scott. I mean, you didn't want it at all. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was hung up on the whole trucker lifestyle. I wanted to own my own truck. I thought it was important.
I've come to the conclusion that if you own less than 3 trucks, then you're spinning your wheels. If you're wanting to be an owner, own at least 3 trucks. And
I've heard
that way, if one's down, you got 2 rolling. But if you have 1 truck and it's down, you're just not going to do very well.
I've heard that from more than one person. And the guy I talked to up in I don't know, when I was out of East Chicago or something, he said that his dad owned a business, and he told him, if you're going to own a truck, don't own less than 5. So, and keep them, have 1 on standby and keep the rest of them running.
it's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So,
you know,
what
something
was your
that go ahead.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
Go ahead. I was, you know, you were bringing up the beginning of it, and I remember our first purge job at Shell. Pretty sure it was Shell, right there in LaPorte or Pasadena, and that plant right next to the 610 loop and all. And there was a bunch of Genox and stuff in there, and there was us 5 guys that just showed up out of nowhere with 5 brand new Genox trailers, and everybody was going, "Who are these guys?" You know. And I don't know how much truth it was to the phone call, but I had heard that someone called from our competitor called Russell, of all people, how things turn around, and they said, "Why didn't you call us? We have more trucks." And the response was, "Well, when they get some more trucks, we won't call you at all."
I think I was on that job when I was with Genox. Was Myers out there?
That first job was just the 5 original guys.
That must have been a year later. I was over at Genox, I think, for about a year, probably 11 months. But I still had one of those Freightliner leases and was on one of those big purge jobs at Shell.
Yeah, this was like the first time we had ever loaded these trailers. The first time for everything as far as what we do as a company. Everything else prior to that was hauling steaks. And so this was like, I figure like January the 6th or something like that, 2013. January 5th or 6th, something like that. And we had loaded up all our trailers over at Prax there in
Deer Park
there. And we were on the job, and we were all pretty excited about it. We really were.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty cool. And
yeah, it was.
I can't remember. Scott, when you first started with us, did you go straight to CO2? I thought you ran nitrogen for a while.
I ran nitrogen for quite a while. Nitrogen and oxygen. It was a while before I started doing any of the purge work. Seems like when I first started with you, I think I went down to I think it was down in Louisiana, out of what's that plant down there, Harold? Like Geismar area. Yeah, the practice.
Geismar.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Air Products. Air Products and Content. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Content. Okay.
Yeah, I worked all those scrap yards with oxygen down there around New Orleans and that whole area for
I remember
quite
that.
a while.
I remember you stayed over there. You stayed over there for a long time running that stuff.
Yeah. Boy, some of those scrap yards, and like that one in New Orleans, that one in the 9th Ward. You ever been to that? The salvage yard.
Oh
man.
Yeah.
That place. You got pieces of steel just coming up out of the ground.
There was a water treatment plant back in the 9th Ward that we'd bring CO2 into once in a while, and it looked like Beirut, Lebanon or something. I didn't like going back in there. Yeah. But I'd only go in there in the daytime, and they had a speaker, and you'd open the gate and drive on in there, and then you felt kind of safe after that. But there burned out cars everywhere.
Yeah.
It didn't look real good.
Yeah, that was all post-Katrina, so it kind of looked like a ghost town, or, like a dystopian future or something. It was, I just remember that salvage yard. After I had my blue truck, I got my blue truck with Genox, so I had my own truck when I came over. But I remember backing up to a tank out there, and a piece of steel came up out of the ground and cut about an 8-inch gash in my driver's side step. It's like,
I remember that. I remember when you did that.
Yeah. That place was wild.
Big old gash from the side of it.
Yeah.
So can you guys think about what your favorite job was? What was your favorite job back in the beginning?
I mean, some of them felt like you're in a real community. Like, do you remember that there was a plant off of 61 in Louisiana? I can't remember what plant it was, but they had a real big purchase job they do every year, and they'd have a lot of us, probably 40 or 50 trucks stacked up at that truck stop,
Yeah.
just
Marathon,
waiting for
is it
weeks.
Marathon?
Yeah, I think it was Marathon.
Yeah.
And they had awesome shrimp po' boys in that truck stop. Like they had a little
That's
diner
that's
with a
place.
counter. Yeah, that place
That's
was
the place.
great.
Yeah.
That has
But
been a
usually
long time.
when we some of our best memories are whenever we did have big jobs like that. We were all together and sitting around talking about crazy stuff and making up lies. And you know, we always
Yep.
a lot of guys always carried lawn chairs. That's a big thing. And like, and you sit around in the parking lot in your lawn chairs and talk about stuff, you know, whatever, because you're away from home and you have the camaraderie of your working companions and all, and it's sometimes a pretty good time. Sometimes people bring food out there, and sometimes they were cooking food, you know.
I don't think they do purge jobs the way they used to, though. They're different, seems like.
Yeah, I think they got them scheduled, right? Don't they schedule you to make a drop or something, almost like it's a customer now or something?
I don't know, because the ones that are Air products, you know, they're the normal type of purge jobs, you know, and but you know, Air Liquide and you remember INS that used to have tons of jobs, and they've just kind of they're not, I don't know if they're in that business anymore.
They bought.
I don't even know what
they bought two carriers.
How do they clean these units out if they're not doing that? I don't know.
Air Liquide bought two companies. They bought Priority and some other company that I think are their liquid carriers now. So I think they have in-house liquid carriers. So they had to stop, or they stopped having to use contractors, I guess. But I haven't talked to any of those guys in forever. So I don't know what, you know, I haven't been on a purge job since probably 2015 maybe or something. So
I know a lot of these guys lived and died by the purge job, and I never did. I didn't mind doing it once in a while or every so often, but I didn't want to do it all the time, for sure. I really always liked the customer delivery end of it a lot better.
Yeah. I was on one, I think it was Exxon Mobil in Beaumont, that out there on 90 or College Street or wherever it was. You remember that plant?
Yeah.
They, I don't know, they were having trouble with it, and I was hooked up to the pumper. I mean, I swear it was for 7 or 8 days, like hooked up. Couldn't leave, you know, I was just trapped there, ran out of food. You know, after a while, you really do start to feel like a prisoner when you're on one of those jobs for 2 or 3 weeks. So, I mean, there's something to be said about, you know, the freedom of just regular driving, you know, truck driving. Sometimes it gets really low being stuck in that plant.
Yeah, that little lifestyle of living inside those chemical plants can get old really quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scott, you at one point decided to move to Minnesota.
Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking.
I don't know what you were thinking there.
I'd never had to stand out in 50 below wind chill. I think that's what it was. Yeah, it's really cold.
Anyway, yeah, it's super cold, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everything breaks. Nothing works. Everything wants to break when it's cold. Sucks.
Yeah.
Crazy cold. I didn't even know it got that cold.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember
that polar
Harold?
vortex?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like 2 years ago, they had
Right, sorry, Scott, but Harold, do you remember one of those first jobs up there in Canada?
Oh my goodness. We were going to Medicine Hat, and speaking of that, I texted back and forth with Ronnie yesterday, Ronnie Harris, And we had a guy there that was a tribal member of the Sioux tribe, the actual descendants of the people that killed Custer. That's his grandpa. I mean, and he's a really cool guy. And they have a massive Indian reservation up there that we were doing a frack job on, for carbon dioxide frack. And the loading point was for Air Liquide. The loading point was Air Liquide Medicine Hat in, I think it's in Alberta, Canada. I think it's in Alberta, Manitoba. I don't know, it's way up there somewhere. And it was just brutal cold up there. And one night it was like minus 40, and we couldn't get the pony motor started. And we went into this little town, and Ronnie knew some people that had one of these heater deals, and wakes the guy up at like 2 in the morning. And the guy comes out there, and bless his heart, he came out there and got his little heater thing and heated our motor up, and we got it started and all. And we went back out there and unloaded. And it's just, that's life up there in northern Montana.
Yeah, I think some of the best advice on that was in one of these podcasts with I think it was Myers and Donnie Stevenson, basically saying just, treat it real good and start it and just never turn it off. Like just run your pony motor going up and down the road. That's pretty good advice for when it's cold up here.
We were doing that. We were actually doing that. We just left it running all the time.
Yeah.
I know. I remember when Harold called me and he said, I just left it running. And I'm like, you drove with it running? And he's like, yeah. Oh, yes, I drove with it running. So I'm good.
Otherwise, you're not going to make that stop. When you get to the other end, it's going to be plugged up with wax, and it is not going to start.
Yeah.
That was the first time we did a Canada load too, Harold. You were the first for almost everything, but
yeah, it was a very interesting time. It really was. And, but I had the right vehicle and the right everything going on. We didn't have a whole lot of issues or problems. We got it done, and
yeah,
it was just an interesting time.
Do you remember after that, though, we had that Kirtland run? Do you remember that? That was a sweet run. Went from Denver to Kirtland, New Mexico. Do you remember that?
Yes. And the guy caught his brakes on fire. That one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. I don't know, Scott, did you ever run that from Kirtland?
I did not. I did run out of Loveland a little bit, and man, I tell you, I did not like that Wolf Creek Pass. That's probably where he caught his brakes on fire, if I had to guess.
No, it was he came out of Raton. And did it. But let me tell you something, a little story about me and Sean McCullough. We were loaded, and we came. We were going through Wolf Creek Pass, and we got up there, and Sean, I don't know, he's from Michigan or somewhere, but he lives in Florida, and I'm from Louisiana. I hadn't seen a whole lot of snowmobiles in my life, and so we got to the top, and the roads were clear, just really good, dry, clear roads. Sky looked fairly clear for a little while, and we stopped. And we were watching the snowmobilers, and we were sitting there talking to some of the guys and all this stuff, and all of a sudden it just started snowing from hell. Snow coming from everywhere, and we're like, oh, we better get down the mountain, So we started going down this mountain, and it really started coming down hard. And we were going 5 miles an hour, maybe 5 miles an hour, just as slow as that truck could go in the slowest gear, Jake braking down. And then it got to where you couldn't Jake brake because it was making you slide. And so you just had to hold the brakes with a real light touch on the brakes all the way down there. People crashed everywhere, all kind of freight trucks here, there, and yonder. And I was thinking, if there's a wreck around this next bend, I can't stop. There's no stopping until I get to the bottom. And I was just praying, please, Lord, don't let nobody be in my way, because there's no stopping. And I got to the bottom of that thing, and I mean, it took a long time to get to the bottom, going 5 miles an hour, and the whole time you could feel that big old truck just move left, move right. It was just a really weird feeling. And I got to the bottom and said, "That's it for me in Mr. Wolf Creek Pass. I'm never going over that thing again, ever. Not doing it." And I haven't. I'm not going over that thing.
Yeah, I was going down there into New Mexico, and I got permission to take the long way. I didn't know crap about cold weather driving in the mountains. It was pretty bad.
The long way is the best way.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and then they took me out of Loveland, like they stopped shipping out of there, so we had to. I guess they put me on a different job. I think it was Magna, Utah. Utah. Do you remember that plant?
Oh.
Like maybe a Praxair plant.
Yeah.
But it was going back and forth to
Yeah.
Wyoming, so it's basically going up through, I think through Park City or something. And there was a lot of bad roads that year. It's like snow and ice, and boy, it was sketchy.
Yeah. I used to think that the customers were always giving us the loads that nobody else wanted. You know?
Could have been. That could have been some of it.
Yeah.
But we did them, and we did them good, and we did them safe.
Yep.
And we had a lot of guys that did a lot of miles over those mountains and never crashed. Unless it was somebody else's fault. that one woman that hit Sean and had no insurance, of course, you know.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I'd forgotten about that.
That was early on, real early on.
Yeah.
I don't think I tore up too much stuff. I mean, I might have backed into a bollard now and there, but I always straightened the bumper out before I brought the trailer back. Yeah.
Do you remember when we picked up? Do you remember when we picked up our first trailer?
Yes, I still have that picture somewhere. I did have a blown up picture of it in. I don't know what I did with it, but it's stored away somewhere from when we moved from that other office. But yeah, Pam and I had gone up to Delphi and picked up our first trailer, and it was really cool. I mean, they gave us a tour of the whole place, showed us how they built them, and we could see the other 4 in different stages of construction. And it was interesting because those were our trailers, and the last one was just getting painted. Well, we had one that was ready to go, and then we had another one that was in a paint shop, and then further down there's different levels of construction on them, and it was a very interesting tour. And then we took a bunch of pictures of the new trailer and took off with it.
I'd love to have seen that. I picked up my first trailer from there. I think it was it's a nitrogen trailer, like 2015. Does that sound familiar? Is that right?
Yeah.
What were the number sequences on our nitrogen trailers? I haven't had one so long.
It was 2016, 2010 on up, 2010, 11, 2012, 2013.
I think I picked up 15, and that's the one I ran in down in Louisiana until I got that oxygen trailer. But yeah, I got one from Delphi.
The first one?
4015. I think
4015.
That's what you might have.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. I've had a brain injury, so.
You're here to tell the tale, man.
Yep. My new excuse for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So, looking back on it, was it worth it?
Oh yeah, no, I've got no regrets. Yeah. No, I've had a great experience over here. Yeah, almost 10 years, maybe over 10 years now.
Yeah. I think at one point you told me this was the longest job you've ever held.
Yeah, it was this and the pizza joint. I worked at a Domino's Pizza for entirely too long for an adult to work at Domino's Pizza. It's ridiculous. I
It's
guess you
actually
get
the
into a
longest job
groove and
I've
get
ever.
comfortable with something.
Yeah, yeah. But you're pretty independent though too. You know.
Yeah, I kind of quiet. I kind of, I'm kind of solitary. I try not to cause a big ruckus. Keep my head down, do my work. Not be the cause of a bunch of emails going flying around. That's the worst.
Yeah, yeah. Keep that head way down.
And Harold, how about you? Fond memories?
Uh, I have nothing but good memories about this place. I wouldn't work anywhere else if I know the day I retire I'm going to regret it. I know it, but it's going to have to happen sooner or later. I'm getting old, you know. But
You said a mouthful.
I've never been treated better. I've never worked at a better place. I've never been successful financially or anything else. It all is just has been a really good ride, good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, there are a lot of
I
places you
can't
work where
remember.
you just feel like,
Go ahead.
where you just feel like management is speculating. You always kind of feel like some places that you feel like management is speculating on, like your future, and the reason that your future is tied up with theirs is, it's all financial incentive. I mean, I don't know, you just feel like some places just counting the money you're able to make, and I've never felt that here. I've always felt, like we're all in it together. We're all trying to get something done and, make something happen. It's been, I've had a really good experience here.
Yeah, me too. And um, it's been you're right. It's a good experience, but it's you have great memories. I mean, we did some really incredible things, and I think everybody just pitched in, and they had to get it done, and then they did it. They pulled off amazing things. Sometimes I thought, oh
You know
my
what?
God, we'd never get it there, you know, and we did.
One of the things that it brings back memory wise is we were having a problem with Lindy. Lindy just wasn't really talking to us, and they wasn't putting in on any new contractors or anything. And I remember the day like it was yesterday. Pam called me up and she said, "Guess who called me today?" And it was Lindy, the Lindy guy, and they were wanting to talk business, And that was
Yeah.
pretty exciting. Like we got another company to do business with, and I mean, if you're
Yeah.
just a very singular company, you can only work with one company out here. I don't know how good that would have worked for us,
Yeah. I pulled a pretty
Yeah.
good run with them from Fulton, New York to East Providence, Rhode Island for quite a while, probably, I guess, about a month. That was kind of an interesting trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But come to find out, your brother lives in Rhode Island, or somebody lives in Rhode Island, right?
Yeah, my brother lived in
Yeah,
New Hampshire, and so I would
Yeah.
take my I'd take my resets at his house. So I was actually able to see my brother and spend time with him for the first time in years. So yeah, it was a pretty good experience up there too. Wasn't a bad gig. They had a little bit of terrible traffic and a little bit of weather, but altogether pretty interesting. There's some
Yeah.
the company in Rhode Island made aerogel, like aerogel mat insulation or something. If y'all ever heard of that crap?
I haven't, but that's another really cool thing is, we have pictures everywhere. And I don't know if you remember, Harold, but Mike Stout took pictures at Miramar out there right next to the jet with his truck and trailer. That was so cool.
Right.
And then you took
It
pictures
was.
of the space launch. I think you had your tractor and trailer sitting right there next to the rocket. I mean, it's just really cool stuff we do.
Yeah.
It's a great
Yeah.
picture.
I can remember taking Mr. Campbell down there, which is no longer with us, but we went down there to Boca Chica, and and Sean Lars was there, and Sean, I was showing him a video of that rocket coming back down. We were standing right next to the rocket. We were taking all kind of pictures, and I said, Sean, watch this, and that rocket came down and landed right there. He goes, man, that's Photoshop. That thing don't do that. I said, yeah, it does do that. Yeah, it does, man. It's pretty cool stuff. I said, we're not going to be standing here when it does it, but it does do that, you know. And then we were right there.
Figured out how to land that.
Right. We were like right there where they're making history, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just awesome. And then you got Roy out there rubbing elbows with Elon, you know.
Yeah, he needs to talk to him about Twitter, I think, though.
I hope he didn't give him the idea for X. I don't know about that.
But there are some really cool places that we've been in. You know, we've been to the salt mines, fisheries. I mean, it's just really cool. I don't know. We've been all the way to the coast of Maine, and you know, all to the Mexico border, even into Canada, and it's just fun seeing those pictures. And that's where that whole thing in the front office came from, is everybody always sent me pictures, you know, and I loved it. I loved getting the pictures. I still love getting the pictures, but Melissa gets most of the pictures these days. But boy, we do some really cool things.
We do, and some amazing things. And we're a lot of people may not realize it while they're doing it, but we have a very big part in making this whole country run, you know?
Yeah.
Our industry is a support industry. A lot of things wouldn't get done if they didn't have the products that we were able to deliver. You know, almost every place needs this stuff. So
it's a very specialized deal, and without it, there's nothing going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, we can pat ourselves on the back for that one, even though, you know, I'm sure
there's a marketing tagline in here somewhere.
Somebody would get it done if we weren't there, but they wouldn't get it done as good.
Yeah.
No, they wouldn't. All right, you guys, we've talked long enough. We probably need to cut it, or else he's going to have 2 episodes instead of 1. So, any last words?
Yeah, I'm almost out of gas, so this is a good timing.
I mean, thanks for everything. Thanks for the memories. Appreciate the job. I mean, you know, it's worked out pretty good.
Well, thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day, okay?
Okay, I'll take care.
Yeah, thank you.
That wraps up the episode of Driver Stories. If you enjoyed the podcast, please follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To learn more about LGT, visit our website at lgttransport.com and connect with us on social media. Also, be sure to explore our blog for additional insights from Scot Barney, where he shares valuable safety tips based on this year's driving experience. See you on the next episode of Driver Stories.